Blog Talk Radio.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Divas That Care. My name is Candace Gish, and I am so grateful that I am the host of this particular program on the Divas That Care network. And I am so grateful for all of you that are tuning in. I know that there's a lot going on in your lives, and we appreciate you listening to all of our amazing guests on the Divas That Care network. If it's your very first time, a big welcome to you. You can listen to all of our podcasts at divasthatcare.com. You can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, and really anywhere that you listen to a podcast. We have 11 amazing hosts on the Divas That Care network, and they have got some amazing shows, so make sure that you go and check them out. And if you've been tuning into us for the last 10 years, thank you so much. It's because of all of you amazing listeners, we've continued to broadcast our show out there. We're listened to in 30 countries around the world now. We're so grateful for that. A lot of international people. And it's great because this way now we can start exploring and expanding our show, and we're actually having guests in a lot of other countries around the world. So it's a big thank you to all of you. Well, today's guest, I'm happy to be introducing Mary Tracy. She is an amazing woman here, and we're going to be learning about her and the things that she's doing. So I want to welcome Mary. Thank you for joining us today on our program.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm quite excited about being here today and just chatting with you today about the different energies that are going on in our lives right now.
Well, and we appreciate that because there is so much going on around the world, you know, and we really want to, I think what we'll talk about a little bit in the show today is we really want to change the negative energies and put a lot more positive energy into the universe so that we can be a little bit more happier and calmer out there to maybe alleviate some of the stresses that are happening. But before we dive into that, Mary, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself with all of us today?
Yeah. Well, I am a psychic medium, spiritual love of life coach, and an astrologer. And I've been working in this medium for probably 30 plus years. And it is that I do astrological charts. I also do one-on-one readings with people, and I do a lot of workshops. So, and my workshops range from mediumship, psychic development to loving thyself workshops. So I teach many different types of workshops, and I also do a daily, I do Facebook Live daily. And I also am on Periscope daily, too, talking about the energies of the day and what's going to unfold with the energies and where the planets are and the shenanigans that they are playing on us right now. So that's what I do.
Well, I love that. Can I ask you how you got into all of this?
Yeah. Well, I was raised in a very strong Catholic family. I still have a very, that sort of that faith. I'm not a practicing Catholic, but that ritual part is still there. And my grandmother lived with us. She was a strong English-Irish woman. And with that, she looked after me as a child as my mom and dad worked. I was the youngest of 6 kids, the afterthought of the afterthought. So there was many years between me and the next. And she did tea leaf readings in the afternoon with clients that just dropped by the house for a cup of tea. And she started to teach me how to do tea leaf readings from the age of 4 and just sort of trusting myself. And she's the one who taught me about angels and fairies and prayer and trusting yourself in doing what you're doing. And my family was very intuitive family. My father was caller ID before caller ID. He had a natural GPS, so he could find you anywhere. It doesn't matter where you were, he could find you. And my mom always, which was not a good, and my mother had prolific dreams. Like her dreams, like she would dream something and she would tell us, and we knew that you better listen because her dreams always came true. So wow. It was just a part of growing up always. And as I got older, my sister who was next to me was the one who had sort of I thought it was cool because there's 6 years in between us that I could hang out with her because she'd be a teenager and I was like 11 or so, but she'd use me to as sort of like a oracle with her friends, and so she'd ask her any question and she'll tell you what your future is, kind of thing. So I always had a knowingness and be able to tell people things. And wasn't until later on in life that I started really harnessing it and utilizing it and learning Reiki, learning more about energy healing, chakras, and meditation, studying with Deepak Chopra, studied with Byron Katie, and learning how to work with the energies that were happening with me, and how to discover more about who I was as a person. So, and
I love that, and I love that it was a normal for you. Like you grew up, this was how you grew up.
Yeah. You didn't. The thing is that you didn't say too much to other people. So you wouldn't go out so that you were like, I mean, the word psychic was not used in our house at all. And you didn't use tarot cards, and you weren't, none of that was allowed in the house. But tea leaf reading was nothing. Or we would make our own pendulum. So using a pendulum would be using your necklace or a ring and putting it over your teacup and asking yes or no questions. So that was normal.
Yep.
Well,
I can see that. And it's amazing because there's so many modalities out there, and there's so many people are open to so many things. Whatever it is that you believe in, there's just so much out there. And I think that our person really should take it all in.
Yes. And a lot of people want to do everything all at once, and they want to, they want to learn all of this. And for me, it was just, as my grandmother would tell you, when you looked into the teacup and you didn't say anything right away, or you thought about it too long, she would grab the teacup out of your sight and say, you're not using your intuition. You're not listening to God. And she said, then she goes, now listen to God and he'll tell you the answers. And then you'd look in it again, and then you'd go with that and with whatever was coming through, because then you would be in a trusting energy. And if you spent too long on it, you're not in a trusting energy. So that's what my grandmother used to do in teaching. Always trust, the first instinct that comes in, whatever you trust, that's it. That's you're being led by God.
Well, and I like that part of it too, because she was basically telling you not to overthink. I think a lot of our issues today are that we overthink. I was thinking about my kids, they were writing all their exams and stuff, and I said, stop overthinking it. You know the answer. I said, if you overthink it, that's when you get everything wrong. And I love that analogy that she told you right away, just to go with your first thought and not take so long.
Yeah, and it was one of those things. And I also was the kid that I was from little, always outside, and I always had to know where the moon was. And that's the other thing. So that led me to the astrology, and understanding it more. And when the moon was in the dark phases, my grandmother would also, she would say, okay, that's the time you have to be quiet, because you can't see the moon, so you have to be quiet. Because that's in ancient times, when the moon was dark, that was the time that you journal and just sit and listen. And when the moon was coming out, that would be the time that you would come out and do more things. So the moon cycle became very much a part.
I love that, because I had never heard that before.
Yeah. So when the moon is dark, when you're in the dark phases of the moon, because everything is dark, right? So if you think of ancient times, there was no electricity. So you can't see too much at night, so best you go inside and just sit and listen. And then as the moon started to come out, you were able to come out more. And so that would be the waxing moon. You'd be able to open up more and be more into that alignment. And, the moon being one of the things that our ancient culture could see and follow besides the sun, was something that they could, use a calendar by. And they can tell when, the different seasons were by how close or how far away the moon was also. So, I mean, the moon is
that
something
makes a lot of sense.
It controls so much of our body. It controls our menstrual cycle, right? So the moon changes every 29 and a half days. So it has a moon cycle every 29 and a half days. A woman's cycle, on average, is every 29 and a half days. So we are so aligned with that energy, but yet as a culture, we are so disconnected from it. Hence the craziness that everybody's having right now. They're wanting to keep, they're wanting to keep control over what is. This is the way we have to have it. But instead of just coming in and sitting, like we just had a new moon in Taurus, which is all about Mother Earth, right? Sitting there, knowing that you are supported, knowing you are protected, and getting ourselves out there in the warm sun and smelling the blades of grass. It's, allowing us to connect with that nature. It's so important. And the new moon was just wanting us to come into this stillness. But, for many of us, it's like, what do you mean? If I'm still, that means I'm not productive, which is, part of our society, too. You always have to keep going. So
is that why you think a lot of people are really stressed out right now?
Because everybody wants the old norm. Even with the very first thing that people wanted to set up was school. Oh, my God, I got to make sure my kid is still learning. Because if he's not learning, then the world's going to crumble. They have to do this unless the world's going to crumble. We have to keep the offices going. We have to keep this going. Nobody took a time to really sort of like, oh, my God, maybe we just need to breathe for a moment and just allow. Instead of keep on trying to push up against the brick wall that is not getting us anywhere. And taking a moment and allowing ourselves to go into a flow and just breathing. But we are wanting things to be so normalized in a way, and that's not where the energies are leading us. They're leading us into a new direction in order for us to hopefully coexist more with the world around us. And
I love that
coexistence. And it is hard. It is hard for a lot of people. So
yeah, I can see that. It's a forced awakening. It's a forced relax. It's forcing us to stop with such a high-paced world that we live in, and in more and more every day, more technology, more of this. I always laugh. My kids are like, well, what did you do when you were a kid growing up? I said, not as much as you do. We were outside all the time. We were on our bikes. We were climbing trees. We were having fun. And we we didn't have iPads and computers and all this. We just hung out when we were together. I said, you guys don't do that. Even I see kids nowadays, they're on their phones and they're with their friends. I said, where's the communication?
Yep.
Well, they're texting one another. I'm like, how do you text one another? You're sitting beside each other. How does that work? And I think in a lot of ways, it's hard because we still have the technology. But at the same time, yes, it's forcing us to stop and maybe look around us and see what's around us a little bit more than we were doing before.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot, in my own scopes and stuff that I do on a daily, and following the astrology, and that's one beautiful thing about astrology is that it's one of the oldest of sciences, and you can't make a planet do anything that a planet is going to do. It's going to do what it's going to do, right? So the moon is going to move the way the moon is going to move, and you can't make it move in a different way. It's not going to work. So there's things that have been happening with the planets and the planet alignments over quite some time that as astrologers, we all knew something. We all predicted that 2020 in this decade was going to be a huge decade of change. There was going to be chaos. There was also where I was talking about, even last year, I even talked about a plague coming in, a darkness coming in. And a lot of people didn't want to hear that. They thought it was negative talk. And they don't want to hear, like, for me as a teacher, the more you're aware, the more you know, the better you are to make the changes and make the decisions you need to make in your life. Bring in the groundedness. So when we have an understanding that, okay, there's some craziness that's going to come in, how are we going to handle this in a very positive, love and light way? And for people who've been practicing and being with me for a long time, they understood there's stuff was coming in, and that even though it was crazy and it's still, many times we're going through, panic phases or anxiety phases, we know that we're going to get through this. We know that things, even though things are going to change, that we are still going to be able to come out of this in a better way, in a more enlightened way, in a way that brings us into more of a community and a tribal energy than we've had in a long time. And that's what we have to, that's when, when we, coming into the cycles and stuff and wanting to come into these places of what do you want to do when this is all over? That's a big one. For many people, this is an opportunity for you to think and to allow for yourself opportunities to grow in different ways and get creative than wanting to, say, paint or draw or do something other creativeness. This is the time to get into that creativity because, you have the time.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to say I completely agree with that. I was saying last year, I said, I'm tired of being so busy. I want to slow down. I want to spend more one-on-one time with my children. I want to spend more time gardening. And I'm like, this kind of hit us like a brick. And I'm like, but I'm thankful. I'm very grateful. Now I have more time to spend with my children. This is more time I can spend, with my gardening and stuff like that. So I think a lot of us we're feeling that. We were feeling overwhelmed with the daily things that we were doing and that life was passing by so quickly and we didn't have time for just, ourselves and just breathing. I think, in a lot of ways, and it is a hard thing for me to say, but in a lot of ways, this was a blessing for my family because now we can do that. We can just be together in the moment. And I want my children to remember those moments, not to think that, life is so fast and, we have to go all the time. And let's just breathe. Let's just be together.
Well, exactly. And the other thing that they're starting to find is that there's so much TV or so many shows you can watch, so many YouTube videos that you can look at or Netflix that you can look at before you have to say to yourself, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. A few people I've heard and I've, talked to and from different parts, I have clients all over the world who have said, we're sitting down and having a meal together. We never sat down and had a meal together, and we're having meals on a regular basis and being more conscious even of what they're eating and what they're cooking. So it's like we're not eating takeout so much, and one of my girlfriends was like, I'm actually cooking. She goes, I've had to pull out cookbooks. It was because she goes, I'm so used to, and I get it because I have 4 kids, they're adults now, but, when you have hockey practice, you have to take the hockey practice, and you had, dance lessons, violin lessons, and you have this and you have that. You're going through a drive-through or you're stopping off at Starbucks and, grabbing a coffee or things like that. You're not taking that time to say, hey, all right, I have to now make breakfast or I have to, what am I going to have for lunch? Or do I want to have lunch right now? So it's really making you think and be a lot more than we were before,
I agree.
And that's
one of the things my family did is that we got a puppy. And we were looking online, too, is that a lot of the shelters, a lot of animals have been getting adopted because I think more people have time to be with them. And what a great thing to be able to do is to spend time with, well, for us, having this little puppy is changed everything because we have an older dog and we didn't think we were going to get another dog because I said our lifestyle is too busy for that. I said it's not fair to try to train a dog and bring him into our family when we don't have that time. But now we have all this time and we're loving it and all my kids are happy and what an amazing thing to be able to do.
Oh, definitely. Oh, puppy will definitely change the way you do things. It's like a new baby. It has its own agenda, right?
Yes, it does.
So, bringing in that new agenda for you. And I think that's where, where people are finding the fear is because of the economy and the loss of a lot of things that have to do with the economy right now. And the fear of not recovering, which I know it will recover, but it's not going to recover in the time that people want it to recover. And it's going to make new advances and new changes in how we manufacture things, where we manufacture things, the type of jobs, more an outlook on appreciation of people who are work in the grocery stores, and how we do our shopping. It's a lot of things are going to be changing within the next 2 years for us, and even how we, there's stores now that are opening up without cashiers in them. And the only people that are there are people who stock the shelves. So there's no cashiers, there's no baggers or anything like that. And so we're going to see a lot more take over certain jobs and new jobs being created in the next coming years because of this. So it's going to be bringing in a lot of new innovative ways of doing things, and that scares a lot of people because they people, majority, they're control. They want to have some or feel like they have a control. And the greatest thing is it's like the best way to get control is let everything go, and then you have control. When you're trying to control, you don't have control. It's when you let go.
True.
That's when you have the control, right? And that's what the thing is. It's like we got to get into the grounding and the stillness and connection, and allowing ourselves to look at the gifts, as what you're experiencing with your own family, of that connectiveness. So, my big thing is, and that I tell everybody every day, you got to do your meditations, you got to do your prayers. I don't care what kind of meditation you do. It can be any type of meditation, but it's something that you do to connect with your inner self. It's so important. And do your prayers. Your prayers are offerings out to the world, like it's offerings out. So when you pray, you pray outwardly. So it's asking, the divine, not telling them what to do, but asking and being open to that. So that's where the meditation comes in. So you're able to receive what you need to hear in that stillness and in that silence. And, what I find, especially because I do astrology, when it comes to the different signs, it's so difficult for certain signs or certain signs to do or to sit still. Some signs, are a little bit better than others. And, if you have air signs, I mean, there's signs, like a Gemini or Libra or an Aquarius, they're not real signs to sort of sit around. They want to get up. They want to do things. They're intellectual. They're air signs. They want to continually moving. Where if you have an earth sign like a Capricorn or a Taurus or a Virgo, they like to get things done, but it's like they're looking at sort of long term. There's a little bit slower movement with them. They're not moving as quickly as what you would like them to do at times. So,
isn't that the truth?
And then, it's just like, just understand, like even within your own children, understanding, water signs, they'll move, but they're more sensitive. So a lot more emotional. And if it doesn't feel right, it just could throw them off a little bit. And, then with the fire signs, it's like, that's the Leos and the Sagittariuses and the Aries. They're passion, they're out there. They're kind of like, I always call the Sagittarius as the party sign, because they're wanting to get out, they're wanting to move, they're wanting to, what's going on, wanting to mingle. So
that is so true.
And it's interesting, in seeing how each one, for water signs, 9 times out of 10, being in isolation is not an issue, because they're very good hibernators. They're very good. They're not ones to go out of their way unless they absolutely have to. So they're not going to go out. So me, I'm a Scorpio, and I have a lot of water. I have a lot of Cancer energy also. So me being home or not having to go out so much is not a big deal. Like it's not something that is a huge thing. But I have a Gemini son who's a hockey player, and he's, this time of year he'd be doing volleyball and all kinds of things. It's driving him crazy right now. Like he can't, I got to do something. What am I going to do? And, So he's thinking everything.
Oh my goodness! And I love that, because I was just going to say, my daughter is I have one daughter that is a water sign, and one is two that are earth, and one is air, and then I'm a fire. So our house is pretty chaotic on the best of days, and it is amazing because I really love that, and my kids get a kick out of it every time they read their horoscopes and stuff. But Mary, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm going to be posting all of your stuff on our social media, because I really love that you are still doing all of your stuff on Facebook. You said you're doing your live Facebook. So I think it's really important for all of our listeners that are really interested in that. I think you should go check it out. Mary's got some amazing stuff going on her page, and you've got to check out her website, because on here it talks about your events, your workshops, things you're doing. And how can our listeners get a hold of you if they want to work with you?
The best way, get a hold of me on Facebook. That is the best way to get a hold of me, because I'll get a little ding that somebody messaged me or something. So Facebook is a very good way of getting a hold of me. And same with Instagram. You can message me on Instagram also. So on working with me. And I've also started, because since this is started, where for my readings, I've done a sliding scale for payment. So if you want to, say you want a reading, but you can only afford $50, then okay, I have it at $50. Or, with my regular price was $160. If you can afford the $160, cool, it's $160 or $90. So I give them payment options on what they can afford, and the reading quality is still the same. It doesn't matter what you pay. Yeah.
Oh, so I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And that's perfect for today.
Oh, yeah. Well, and everything I do, so from my classes to how I run my business, is intuitive, which drives a lot of my earth signs crazy, because I will do things, or I'll say, oh, no, I'm not going to host that now. I'm going to wait a couple weeks, and I'm going to host it with them, because that's where I'm being drawn to do it, because of the energies, and just following when the best time is to either host a class or to do different celebrations and things like that we do. So I really follow everything intuitively in what I do. And
that's wonderful.
And I've learned over the years to listen. So 2 years ago, around 2016, the end of 2016, 2017, I was driven to do all my stuff online, from classes to readings to everything, and to start promoting to do everything online. And I knew there was a reason, and now, of course, it's more now. And even about a year and a half ago, I got a feeling to just stop doing markets, pull out of markets, don't do markets anymore. And many, people are like, well, how are you going to get your clients? And I'm like, I'm just trusting my guides. They'll come the way that they need to come. So, and then, of course, now we're not doing markets for quite some time now. So you may not know the reason why you're going to do something. It just may not even make sense. And that's why trusting yourself and sitting in the stillness is important, so that you get into that creating vibration and allowing, which is so important.
That's perfect advice, actually, to end our show. So I want to thank you so much for being my amazing guest, Mary. I had a great time. I learned a lot, and I hope that you'll come back on our program again.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
It was so much fun. So I want to thank you to all of our listeners. Well, and to all of our listeners, I want to let you know that I'm going to be posting all of Mary's social media links on our social media links. So I think it's really important to check her out, get to know her, see what she's doing. She really is a storyteller. In a lot of ways, the things that she is doing, she's really sharing with all of you. So make sure that you check her out. And I wanted to let you know that I hope that each and every one of you has an absolutely amazing day. I make sure that you check out all of our podcasts on divasthatcare.com. And I hope that you have a great day and do something kind for somebody out there. Until next time, bye-bye for now.